Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be talking specifically about healing your timelines. Now what this entails is being able to look into a wider perspective of your life. But the difference relating to how one can actually heal their timeline is that they're looking at it in an omni-perspective viewpoint. What that means is that you are simply seeing yourself as an integral component relating to how you are able to heal the overall nature, the integrity of a particular timeline. Now this is almost in a way like conscious time traveling. In a way, because really time doesn't exist, but what you're doing is, on a linear fashion, doing something to that degree. You're basically just looking at an indication of a traumatic event or something very, very unsettling, a challenge, a hardship that you have occurred, that has happened to you in the past. And you're basically just drawing out this particular timeline. And you're being able to notate in point form what were the challenges, what was the traumatic issue that led up through this entire experience, this timeline, that represented a very strong, powerful grasp of memory for you to feel guilty or feel angry or feel despair, feel depression, whatever it may be. And just going back to this particular event that represents this streaming timeline and being able to see yourself as, again, an integral component of this particular event taking place in this timeline. Now, this is something that is challenging. This is something that will take some time to get used to how you're actually able to heal a timeline event, an event that you have, through memory, seized and felt that this holds a very strong portion of your identity. You need to label the other integral components relating to this situation, this event that took place. Maybe this was something, for example, between my parents and myself that caused me to run away when I was younger and go on my own. And that's where I felt more turmoil was taking place. And so there's the timeline that involved the integral components of myself, my mother, my father. And the timeline is here, so maybe I'll say it was between August 5th of 1987 and August 15th of 1987, perhaps within that 10-day span. And you're just noting out in point form the certain forms of details pertaining to this timeline that you felt represented a great deal of guilt, depression, etc. and what all these events represented. So all you're basically doing is giving your vantage point to the event itself. And as you give your vantage point, you're going to imagine what it would be like. What do you feel your mother and or your father was thinking at this time? What do you feel was their mentality? What do you feel was a lot of their reaction pertaining to the events that unfolded here? And you're going to be jotting that down as well too. Just getting point form understandings from all parties, from all integral components relating to this situation. And once that's down, once you have the familiarity of the entire event, once you have the integral components taken care of, you're now going to create an alternate timeline. And this alternate timeline is going to represent the resolution to the feeling of guilt. It's going to represent the resolution to any feeling of hardships or great challenges that have left itself as a burden, that has tied in together with memory, that every time you're feeling this whole gigantic dense weight of energy comes together. So you want to be able to create a timeline, an alternate timeline, where this is in resolution, where there is a lighter feeling to the entire scenario. So as you have given your own specifics as yourself, as an integral component, as you've been able to tap into your mother and tapping into your father and really getting that example for that way in regards to certain forms of information that comes through there. After all that's taken care of and what led to the part of the event that led to a guilt, that led to a depression, that led to an anger, you have that feeling of the result. And so basically you're just taking this new timeline and you're replacing it. So you're substituting that old feeling with a whole new timeline that's come together. It's a time where you have now been able to forgive your mother and your father and any other integral components with this timeline. So if you're able to look back at this timeline, if you're able to look back at this event and saying, I'm able to forgive my mother and my father, I'm able to forgive myself, and I'm able to move on. That's where the alternate timeline is at its most efficiency. Now it's able to actually replace and substitute the old timeline. So rather than feeling that maybe at times you get flashbacks about this particular event, even though you've forgiven it, this is the whole remedy itself that's going to replace that feeling. So if there was an argument and you saw yourself running out the door with a suitcase in your hand, and you ran over to your partner's place, maybe a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and it turned out to be very, very unsettling there, and you felt very lost, whatever it may be. But you've been able to forgive all of these aspects so that that memory itself no longer needs to be a result within your mind. So creating this whole new timeline where you felt that there was forgiveness and fulfillment between yourself and the others involved, maybe even that partner as well too, been able to forgive them. You're implementing this new timeline of a feeling that represents accomplishment, that represents learning fulfilled, that represents the whole idea of a challenge overcome. Whatever that may be feeling that you're just giving your mother and your father a great big hug, or you see your ex-partner, you've been able to forgive him or her, and you're able to give them a great big hug, and you're able to really bring out a lot of love. You may start to see that all four of you, in that sense, in the integral component, are holding hands and gathered together in a circle and being able to say, I forgive you, I love you, let's move on with our life. And you're able to imagine this, and you feel that this is very prominent, this is very strong within your mind. So you're doing a memory replacement of a positive reinforcement. So as that becomes implemented, it's like you're taking out the old timeline, just kind of holding it in your hand, saying, I love you, I forgive you, thank you very much for the lesson that you have shared with me. I now release you back to source. I now release you back into the ethers. And seeing that timeline evacuate. So it's gone back into the ethers. It's gone back into another dimension that you will not be parallel to. And now you're substituting it with this timeline replacement. You're making this healing arrangement of timeline your feeling of perspective. Now some of you may ask, well Brad, how does that happen? Because that's not how I remember it happened. It happened in this specific way. Well, again, understand that everything is now, and that all timelines are valid, and that your particular memory can be replaced. It can be substituted with something that represents a positive reinforcement, because there is no enactment in regards to what you feel must be the timeline. That basically is an identification craving. And so you're releasing the craving of feeling that you're suffering, even though you felt you've already forgiven this, but there's still these aspects. And the aspects are basically just telling you, go back in full reflection and look at this. Do you still forgive your mother, your father, your partner? Yes, I do. Do you fully understand that this was part of your life lesson, that this was all part of an experience that's brought you into who you are right now? Yes, I do. Well, then there you go. Now you're able to create this new timeline that represents love, that represents fulfillment, that represents great transformation and forgiveness, and bringing that together. Poof. So you're taking that timeline. It's kind of like a video editing program. You're taking out that old timeline, you're throwing it in the trash, so to speak, but representing a trash can that is liberating, that is forgiving, and that is acknowledging, and then being able to put this new timeline together in its place. And when you feel that, you do a meditation on this. You feel that new timeline coming together, and you feel liberated. This feels really good. Yes, I've forgiven my mother, I've forgiven my father, I've forgiven my partner, I've forgiven this whole thing because I understand its potential to bringing to me who I am right now. And so now I'm feeling this, and I'm allowing this integration, and I'm giving myself about a good 15 minutes to meditate on this new timeline that I've integrated, that I've time traveled, and that I've created this whole new timeline from another dimension, and it's come together, poof, and it's popped into place. Because now this is a timeline of fulfillment rather than the previous timeline of guilt and not being able to understand the life lesson. So now that's been integrated, that's been fulfilled, that's been advanced, and that's how it's done. You need to put yourself into other people's shoes. And this is how the greatest states of forgiveness happen, is because we're so addicted to the illusion of a self. Poor me, I was a victim. Poor me, this happened to me. Poor me, I had this accusation. I had this situation happen to me. You know, people should be coming up to me and kissing my boots and, you know, forgiving me. Why should I have to forgive them? And that catches up right with the ego that moves into the self. You need to come into omniscient perspective. You need to look at the entire timeline and every single person that's involved, the event itself in totality, in order for you to make a cut, remove, and paste in the new timeline. Forgiveness needs to be achieved first. So if you are able to successfully look back into your past, look into these timelines, and being able to achieve a state of forgiveness and a feeling of liberation, but you still feel that there's still these minute reflections about that timeline, go back to it in totality. Look at the complete understanding of that timeline. Write it down on a piece of paper, you know, record it onto an MP3, whatever you feel you have to do to get more perspective of it beyond the self. What was it that my mother and that my father were experiencing at that time? Do I feel? What was their thoughts? What were they going through in that particular moment? How do they feel through their own perspective? Were they attempting to handle this? What was my partner going through? You know, what about his past? Can I tap into his Akashic records and look more into what he was going through or what she was going through? Whatever that may be, you're basically utilizing your own intuition and you're bringing yourself into the vantage point of the other integral components that represent this timeline. This is how it's done. You need to be omniscient. You need to look into the idea of neutrality through omniscience as an observer to be able to look at a timeline, understand that it's forgiven, taking it out, put a whole new, fresh, positive reinforcement timeline together in there, and that beacon of light itself starts to serve its purpose. And then it just starts to meld back into physicality because now you have worked out the situation that you need to do so that you can achieve liberation from something that may have been feeling very guilty about, you may have been feeling very angry about, or very depressed about. That's the key. So this is basically just healing the timelines of your life here. And for those who are very proficient, being able to go back into their past lives. If they feel they have a lot of memories in their past lives and other dimensions that they feel is very tragic. How deeply can you go omnisciently as an observer in neutrality to look at all the integral components to forgive them? To take that out and put a fresh, new, positive, reinforced timeline in there so that it can integrate, so that it can ground. And so you are neutralized relating to the situation. This is homework for you guys. This is homework for everybody that's watching. I would love to see feedback. I would love to be able to hear from people who are able to do this. I may be also creating some samples coming up in the next little while so that some others can get an idea. I might make another video, a follow-up video, so to speak, relating to this, doing like a demonstration. But hopefully this makes a lot of sense to other people. If you do have any questions relating to this particular technique, please feel free to contact me anytime, info@consciousmatrix.com. But please let me know how this works out for you, as this is something that can be a very beneficial tool to help ground you, to bring yourself back into that further acclaimed state of forgiveness and liberation so that your life feels much more vivid, much more lucid, and beneficial to your experience. Thank you so much. Farewell for this timing. Take care. Namaste, and may it be well with you. Goodbye.